We'd like to thank Mainspring Companies for sponsoring Season 1 of The Next Entrepreneur. Mainspring celebrates the entrepreneurial journey, and we are very grateful for their support.
At 36 years old, that was the very first Friday night in my entire life that I've been at another restaurant, period, in Baton Rouge. I've been on a vacation, but I've never dined at a restaurant on a Friday night in Baton Rouge at 36 years old. Okay. And at 50, I can only tell you there's only been maybe 3 other Fridays that's happened in that time frame, because we work. You sacrifice a lot of personal time to do this, and so you have to be passionate about it. You have to pull joy from it.
Hello, I'm Andrew McClendon, your host of the Next Entrepreneur podcast. I'm here with my producer, Daniel Sagona, today, and our guest is Jim Urdiales. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm very excited to talk to you. So you've been in business for 21 years with Mestizo Louisiana Mexican Cuisine.
Correct.
And know you well. I've known your family forever.
Yes.
And so you grew up in the restaurant business, right?
Third generation restaurateur.
And so my wife and I started dining at your father's restaurant before you got in business.
He used to wait on you.
Yep, yes. I do remember. Well, and I loved your dad said, we always laugh about this, but your dad said he made his margaritas to make your toes tingle.
Yeah.
So our toes tingled a few times.
Yes.
Yeah, over the years. But but you've been in business now for 21 years.
Correct.
So I did want to start off just getting right into it. I mean, here we are 6 or 7 weeks into the COVID-19 situation, and you can look across the board and see how it impacted business owners.
Yes.
And it's been brutal to many, but certainly to restaurants.
Correct.
So I wanted to see if you could just paint a picture for us, Jim, of what this has looked like from day one. What has transpired with your business, and how is it different?
So you started getting inkling probably a week before the whole shutdown started that something major was going to happen. And I remember that Monday afternoon, I saw the press conference, and I just was like, good Lord, what is this going to be? I have no clue how we're going to survive this. I was fortunate that we had already built it to go, but I was thinking in my head, man, this is really going to be really tough to surf through. And so the first day that we opened was a Tuesday. We did like $2,000 in sales, and I was like, okay, times 6 days a week, that's $12,000. Okay, that'll cover payroll. That might cover the food bills bringing in. We can make this happen. And then I think it was like Thursday, we got a little bit of a kick, what I'd say, as far as increase. So it was interesting to learn that people were really going to adapt to that, but still there was the uncertainty. And that first day where I had to go and basically let all the staff go and say, okay, guys, I don't know when or how soon. As soon as I can bring y'all back, I will. I just don't know. And one of the titles that I've earned, I guess, is I call myself a restaurant therapist for other restaurant owners. And there's a lot of us that are really good friends, and we hang out. And I had a few talk to me and call me up and like, Jim, how are you going to go through this, and what are you going to do? And you have that to-go business, you have that marketing plan, or that social media presence. And I said, well, I challenge you to use this time to figure out what your weaknesses are for your business and adapt that quickly, because our industry was already in an evolution that's changing rapidly. So COVID, I think, has exposed some businesses' weaknesses a little earlier than I think they expected it to. And it's shown a lot of them that they can change their model quickly to make things happen. So I think that's an important lesson. When we first got to that first or second week, I thought, okay, if we can maintain 50% of our normal sales, then that would be really great. And I'm not bragging about this. This has been a lot of hard work to do it, but we've actually now about between 70 to almost 75% of our normal sales right now, with a fourth of the staff. And I was able to start bringing some people back because it's just been amazing to watch the business kind of build back. And it's not easy. It's a longer day for us. I was doing a 7-day a week before this. We're now just doing 6 because I physically and mentally and emotionally could not do the 7th day. I just couldn't. Right. And so I have to use that day for rest. But I've been very blessed to see sales.
Okay, so that's amazing to hear. But I've also been watching how hard you've been working it. And so it's good to see that the hard work is paying off for you. But so that first week is where you had, where is this going? But then there was the official, so was there an official thing like you can't open or you can only do to go?
Right. The governor announced, I'm saying March 14th or 15th. It was that Monday, and basically said that only essential businesses could be open. Everything was quarantined and shut down. Restaurants could only sell to go curbside. And that first week, when he put out that mandate, there was a statement about you could sell beer and wine, but no. You could sell prepackaged liquor, but you couldn't sell anything from your restaurant. And they put in specific, including frozen margaritas. And I remember thinking, why would you do this to us? I mean, especially since, there was a little pushback from another restaurateur who I highly admire, and he called the governor and the press secretary and says, you need to understand that if you want sales tax of any kind, you better lift this, because realistically, we already have a liquor license that allows us to sell those margaritas. So what you're doing is you're saying we paid for this liquor license to do this, but now under this we can't. So I guess after about the 5th day, that kind of eased off, because I can tell you I would not be doing 75% of my numbers if I wasn't selling margaritas. We're in South Louisiana, and even though the weather has been phenomenal the last 4 or 5 weeks, it's still warm, and people want their frozen drinks.
Yeah.
So thank gosh that happened. But it was definitely adapting. I think the one thing, I hate to use the word tree hugger, environmentalist, but I am concerned about the amount of to-go disposable stuff we're going through, and the amount of money I'm spending on to-go stuff, because everything has to be packaged in styro and aluminum containers, and some of it's recyclable, some of it's not, and so that's been something to kind of watch. But we're saving a tremendous amount of money on no linen, hardly any labor. The dishwasher, it's used just for the stuff for the line, but we're not doing plates and forks. And, so
there's offsetting costs, right? You're increasing certain costs, like you said, with to-go items. Okay, so what would you say was your low point revenue-wise percent compared to the norm before you started to build back up?
That first week, because most people had stockpiled their house, and so they were pre-cooking or had all their liquor for the house. And so that first week, I want to say we did maybe 40%. And I just was ecstatic with that. I was like, man, I can survive this. Is going to be if this is how it's going to be. And then again, you start to wonder, like, well, are people going to start cooking more? And if you've seen online, people are baking and cooking and stuff more. So there was this fear, like, well, gosh, what if people start cooking more at home? And all I got to do is YouTube recipes. And a lot of my favorite chefs have moved to tutorials on social media, and I've watched them do their things. And I'm thinking, man, the last thing I need is people starting to cook Mexican food at the house. But there's a social experiment. It's a social experience that everybody has when we're able to come back live. That you just can't get from cooking at home.
So today can you bring guests into your restaurant or not yet?
They can sit outside. They can seat outside, and there has to be 10 feet between tables right now currently.
Right.
We're hoping that next week the governor will ease it to where we can go to 25% seating inside. Again, that model is on phase one, that there's still 10 feet between tables. So it'll be a different floor plan in the restaurant.
Right.
I will say this, to be an optimist, I've been talking to a few of my restaurant friends. I said, okay, you need to be prepared for this, because even though you're only seating 25% of your capacity inside, there's nowhere else for these people to go except for home. So we're probably not going to have huge table turns. You're going to have people come in, and they're just going to be ecstatic to be social. And I told them, I think we're going to probably have to go later hours, because I could see where people are going to want to just hang out
And linger.
and just linger.
Enjoy.
I'll take another round of drinks,
Right.
because all I got to do is go home and watch some more Netflix.
Right. So any thoughts about when you would think that there's a return to normalcy?
I think realistically, we're, especially in Louisiana, because of the cases we've had, we're definitely he's going to do in phase one. I probably think the 100% model is realistic between August and September, for sure. I know this sounds sad, but we are a college town here in Baton Rouge, and everybody's already, okay, is football season going to happen? And that's all people are worried about. And so I know they're trying to come up with some remedies for that, and just getting the kids back to school in August, and that's going to be the sense of normalcy people are really looking for. So I would think by August and September we're kind of getting back to our normalcy.
Well, man, you've managed well through this, and I know there's many restaurants that have not been able to do that, either did not have a meaningful to-go business or drive-through or whatever, are now trying to create it.
Right.
But without that, bringing on a 25%, occupancy.
Right.
I mean, that's going to be a tough model to survive on.
Yeah.
Right. So, well, thanks for that color in that. I know it's I know it's been extremely challenging, and you guys have been working so hard.
Yeah.
But look, you've been in business 21 years, right? Why don't we go to the start? I remember your first location in Baton Rouge was on Sherwood, right?
Sherwood and Coursey, an old tasty donut.
Right.
15 tables, 15 parking spaces.
Yeah, and I was there frequently. It was close to our home at that time.
Yep.
And how long were you in that location?
7.5 years.
Yeah. So it was really cool as a customer to watch your business blossom, right? And you blossom, personally.
Yeah.
So what was it that got you to say, "Hey, I need to look at a new location"?
So that first location, like I said, was small, and back up and give myself a little bit of credit. I did graduate LSU with a degree in marketing, and if I had a second career choice, I would be a demographer. I love reading demographics. I love reading about percentages and what motivates people, and I think that's probably why I make some of the decisions I do, because I read constantly on that type of information. But one of the things I noticed was that was right when Sherwood Forest had opened up to Segan Lane, and Segan had expanded. And so you could see the traffic patterns changing. At that same time, my core audience that I was trying to go after lived in Shenandoah and White Oak Landing. And I just noticed every afternoon that Coursey was just so backed up. And I remember thinking, this is weird. After about the third year, we peaked on our numbers, and then the fourth year, the numbers stayed the same. So I realized this is about as good as it's going to get at this location. And realistically, 15 tables and 15 parking spaces. I mean, I had such a small budget to open that restaurant, so that's all I could afford. So that was the only thing I could do. But I also knew that looking at how people, like everything died off around 8 o'clock. And I was like, okay, that's not going to be sustainable for this restaurant. And then started studying where I wanted to move to. And so I worked with a guy from a company, local company, and told him my wishes to relocate to another location. He said, okay. And so first thing I did is I got my business plan together and wanted to figure out how much money I could be able to qualify for. And I pitched it to several banks, and I remember several just stopping saying, we're not interested in restaurants. Thank you for your time. And my last stop, I'll never forget, was my banker who had had my property on Sherwood. And he goes, Jim, do you realize you already have equity? And, I think we could probably approve you to about a $400,000 loan. And I said, oh, really? I was like, yeah. He said, you've still got sizable equity, and I've watched you grow, and your numbers are trending up, so that's good. He goes, you're a business we're willing to invest in. I said, okay, great. So once we had the budget in place, had the business plan, we started looking, and I knew that my present location was an area that I was looking for, but it was going to be a tight budget. And I remember I was getting off the interstate one day, and because my present location was an old Denny's, and I saw this sign, I pulled in and it closed. So I called my realtor. I said, do you have any contacts with Denny's on the national level? Because this Denny's just closed. He said, actually, I do. So 30 minutes later, he calls me back, says, here's the landlord. I called the landlord, said, hey, Denny's right here closed. He didn't know that. And he said, okay. He says, well, that's great. He goes, well, what's your goal? I said, I would like to rent this building. He says, well, you're going to have to negotiate the sublease through Denny's because they have 4 more years left. So I was like, okay, I can do that. And as we get off the phone, he goes, Jim, do you know who I am? And I said, no, sir, I don't. And he told me his name. He says, ask your dad. Turns out he was one of my dad's best customers from Alexandria, Buddy Tudor.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, and so we had a discussion, and I was able to negotiate the lease, and took over the remainder of Denny's lease, and then we negotiated my lease after that. So it was I had a long-term 5-year increment lease with them, and we just renewed an extended lease with them a couple of years ago.
And you did a nice major addition, and
Yeah, we just added on a
and
private room.
but I mean the whole place looks spectacular now.
Yeah, but the learning lesson also was the move was right after Katrina, and we had everything. When I'm telling you, my budget was so tight. I'm thinking, this is all we can do. Well, Katrina kind of messed that up, and so my $400,000 budget ballooned to it doubled. Let's put it that way.
Oh my goodness!
And I remember thinking, I'm going to fail miserably. The numbers they don't sustain this model. And I remember when we made the first year, I remember thinking, okay, we'll do an anniversary party here, but I'm probably not going to be here next year because it's just not going to work. So the next year comes and says, well, we'll do one more party, but I'm guaranteed we're not going to make it next year. This is just not possible. And I remember all the way up to my 7th year on Acadian, I said, well, maybe I might make it. Damn it, you made it this far, fool. Maybe just keep on going, So, yeah, it's been a journey. And you always doubt. You always think this is it. I'm not going to be able to make it through this.
But in all those years, during those years, there was always constant change in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And one was addressing the healthy meals trend. And so you guys hit that kind of head on.
Yeah, I think we were the first restaurant in Baton Rouge to even tackle that as part of the model. And the lesson there is how this all came about. I was at the location maybe 3 years at that location, and that was just right when all the online reviews are going on. And this young vegetarian food blogger comes in and just writes the most horrific review of my restaurant. And I mean, she hated everything. She hated the colors. She hated the lighting. She hated my decorations. She hated my music choices. And then when she got to the food, I mean, she read me for filth. And so I remember someone sending me an email or something saying, you might want to check this thing out. So I read it and I got really mad. And I was like, God, I want to respond because first off, I'm not a vegetarian restaurant. So why is she critiquing me as a vegetarian restaurant? Well, that's not who I'm positioned as. So the next day I came back in, I reread it again, I calmed down, and I really went through it and I started thinking, I said, wait a minute, there's actually 3 dishes on this menu that totally would have suited her. But then I realized the server didn't do their job to guide her to that dish. So I was like, okay. And one of my important to me is I update my menu every year. Now, it's not a full new menu. I just evolve the menu every year. So that next, I was just in the editing phase, and I was just adding tapas on my menu, some small plates. So as an experiment, I said, I'm going to put 3 vegetarian tapas dishes over here just to see if there's an interest. And lo and behold, yes. And then the next year, we expanded it. And then the next thing I knew, we were working on the bowls idea. And when the bowls came on the menu, it changed everything.
Really?
And I mean, it was a game changer. In a restaurateur chef's career, that's the one thing, it brought me to a whole nother level. It changed the whole perception of my restaurant, opened us up to so many people. And all of a sudden people were like, "Where, are you new?" And I was like, "No, we've been here almost 15 years in business, at that point." So you have to pay attention to trends and what's going on and lifestyles. And, we used to always joke, California, it's 20 years to go from California to, in our area. But the one thing, like one of my chef friends in California, she always responds to my posts and she's like, I laugh at how much response you get on your keto menu. Because in California, it's not keto, it's just the way they eat there. Yeah, that's the lifestyle. Right. And so here, all of a sudden, keto is exploding. But the clean, healthy style of presentation is so integrated in California cuisine. So I take a lot of inspiration from that. But it's also just how people are starting to eat, and they're looking for something different and new. And, one of the reasons I call my restaurant cuisine instead of a restaurant is, first off, Mexican food, and it has a tendency to be, it's beans and rice and cheese. And a lot of people don't understand that Mexican cuisine is farm to table, is gourmet, it's street food, it's vegetarian. It's all those labels that people want to try and identify with. And so what I work on when I'm creating my dishes is showing the different aspects of what Mexican cuisine is to me in my travels, then also integrating my Louisiana products into it. So like when I'm reading other cookbooks or when I'm traveling and I'm watching my other chefs, I'm taking the concept of why they're going for that dish, but in my head, I'm thinking how I'm going to change it with my flavor profiles from Louisiana. And that way I'm making those dishes my own. It's not like I'm duplicating something else.
Yeah, it's nice to follow you on social media and see how, as you travel for vacation or whatever, you're doing research as well.
Right.
Really cool. Look, let's take a break for a minute here, Jim. Get in a word from our sponsor, and we will be right back. MBD Automation is a proud sponsor for the Next Entrepreneur podcast, and we welcome them to the show. MBD Automation is a mechanical install contractor who installs conveyor systems and automated equipment, VRCs and singulators and sorters and all sorts of equipment that you'll find in e-commerce fulfillment centers, distribution centers, mail processing facilities, airports, and the industrial market and in the defense industry. MBD Automation works all over the United States and has a list of international clients that they perform work for in the U.S. as well. When you're looking for your next mechanical install contractor, reach out to MBD Automation. They can be found on the internet at mbdautomation.com. Okay, we are back with Jim Urdiales with Mestizo Louisiana Mexican Cuisine. So, Jim, why don't you walk us through the meaning behind Mestizo?
So I was in college history class, and I remember reading the word mestizo. And mestizo is a Spanish word that means of mixed blood, two cultures, which a lot of people are always amazed when you tell them that there was no such thing as a Mexican before the Europeans came over, and they scratched their head a little bit. And, the story of how Mexicans came about, is just as brutal as anything else. And but every culture has a word that correlates to a combination, like here in mulata or mixed breed of anything. We focus on that. But when I saw that, I just remember thinking in my head, and I still have that book. I said, if I ever open a restaurant, I think I'm gonna call it Mestizo. And it was in my head, but I did not want to do this business. I was raised in it. I tried everything to get away from this business. I went and worked in the hotel industry for a couple of years in New Orleans, and loved it. But my creativity was kind of squashed.
So the mixture then, the mestizo, meaning these two cultures that are mixed, the culture being Mexican and Louisiana.
Yeah, Cajun French, but I prefer Louisiana. So I define mestizo restaurant as Louisiana Mexican cuisine. And the reason being is, and nothing disrespectful to my mother because she gets offended by this, but typically when someone hears the word Cajun, they think everything has to be spicy and super hot. And I guess from a culinary perspective, I like food that's evenly balanced. I don't like anything too hot or too under. And so I decided to go with the Louisiana Mexican, the fusion of the two. So basically I took that word and made it my own, and even made my food my own.
Yeah, I mean, you created a niche in the market. I mean, it was, if you consider like Tex-Mex, right? Yeah. So this was Louisiana Mex,
yeah.
right?
La Bex.
La Mex. But so there's deep meaning behind the name.
Right.
But your food was true to that. I mean, it was truly a different product. Mm-hmm. And man, was it well received, right? When you came, it was refreshing.
Yeah. It's funny though. One of the things I laugh is how things have changed so much. I remember, in the last 5 years, this whole Yelp and the online reviews, and I mean, my biggest negative review all the time was, it's not Tex-Mex, it's not real Mexican, it's not this. And I remember this one lady from Texas got in my face, was angry, and I'm like, why are you so angry at me about this? Like, I said, it'd be different if you didn't see the word Louisiana Mexican restaurant on the outside of my building. Right. And when you looked at the menu, what part of this didn't correlate for you? I mean, she was down. She's like, this is not real Mexican food. And I was like, well, ma'am, I hate to be the one to educate you, but Tex-Mex is not really Mexican food, authentic Mexican food either. It's a derivative. And there's nothing wrong with it. I said, all my competitors serve that, and you can go one street over and pick your choice, But I think for me, when I decided to open Mestizo was, if I was going to do this, I wanted to do it under what I considered my passion. If I was going to do this right, that I wanted to make it something unique and different. And with my marketing background, I always tell people, make yourself different. If your menu can be seen at another Mexican or another restaurant, then what's really unique about that dish? So the fact that I have dishes on my menu, and I would venture to say probably 80% of my menu, those dishes are not going to be found at another Mexican restaurant, period. Right. They're truly my dishes. So it's not like I can say, I can get that cheaper at that restaurant. I can get that combination plate. Right. That's fine, but a lot of my dishes don't exist at other restaurants. So, and again, I take influence from different things. I remember the first time I brought feta, because I didn't realize that there was, different influences that have come into Mexican cuisine as well. And I remember thinking, I wonder if someone's going to think I'm a little crazy by bringing feta and, doing it different ways with Mexican food. And, I sell it all the time, So you got to be, I always say you've got to take on, especially as a restaurateur, to be successful, you have to step out the box and you have to show people. There needs to be a story, first off. I think a really good restaurant, there's a story about how it became, why it's there, why it existed, how the food came about. I mean, I say that when I have a lot of these pop-up pizza and burgers have gotten reinvented in the last few years. And someone say, oh, that's the best burger in town. But when you start talking about dining, there's got to be a story.
Right.
There's a story of why that food and why that owner is passionate about it. And I look for that when I go eat. I mean, we have some great Italian restaurants in Baton Rouge, and most of them have a really great story about who the owner or why the food is a certain way.
Yeah.
And, so that's just how I envision everything.
Yeah, and I think you've done it really well.
Thank you.
I really do. I wanted to touch on other trends that have occurred while you've been in business, but certainly over the last few years, and delivery.
Right.
So there's Uber and Uber Eats and Waiter and DoorDash and all these businesses that. So as those began to develop, how did you see those impact your business?
So I'm gonna back up just a little bit on something. So one of the things that was going on in the restaurant market here in Baton Rouge was there was an oversaturation of restaurants, and I'm going back 5-6 years. And so as more and more restaurants wanted to come in, I said, okay, it's going to be one of those things where I saw an inconsistency in my lunch business. I saw a little bit of inconsistency in dining during the week, okay, because people have to go, they're going to try all these new restaurants. Well, it kind of put in my head was the restaurant model, my model, can't always be existed on just what is going on my side of my four walls. There has to be revenue coming in from different avenues. So when the third party came on board, I joined Waiter really quick and got on board, and we figured it out, and we flourished really well in the beginning with them.
Well, let me ask you, so before that, was it just to-go orders? I mean, y'all didn't do delivery.
We didn't do delivery. We did a lot of to-go, and I had already developed my catering part of my business that had already just mushroomed to where we had to bring on extra people. It was overwhelming, and it consumed me. And for the longest time, I was doing all those menus. I was doing all that negotiating and talking back and forth with catering, and that's time consuming. And so now I have people that do that for me. So,
I mean, you almost need a catering director type person, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you embrace with Waiter, and
yes.
so what was the impact on your business? Was it noticeable immediately, or?
Pretty much immediately, yes. I can tell you a couple lessons that I learned from that other restaurants still haven't quite adapted to, separate from what we're doing right now. But when you're doing really nice dishes, you can't put that in a styrofoam box.
Right.
Okay, and sometimes I have dishes, like for instance, I have this scallop dish that on a plate's long and linear.
A beautiful presentation, right?
But you can't put that in that container. So we upgraded our to-go stuff, and it's almost like mini Tupperware, and it's a little bit more compact. But what I know is that the food is still hot.
Right.
And the presentation may not be quite the same,
Sure.
but it's pretty close. Yeah. Now it's triple the cost of a styro box, but I think if someone's paying an upwards of $20 to $25 for a dish, I think they deserve to have a better presentation on that. So that's one of the things that's really important to me is presentation-wise, as far as what things look like when they're in the box. And so we focused on that. Waiter was really, really big. In the beginning, it was 3%. So we had increased our prices 3% because one of the things a lot of people don't realize is in this day and age, a restaurant maybe has, if they're lucky, 2 to 4% profit on a plate of food. All profit really is in the bar and the liquor. So to give 3% to them means I would be trying to survive on maybe 1% or maybe less than that.
Right.
Okay. So When Waiter moved their model up to, I was 15%, well, then we just followed suit with the prices. And I remember thinking, okay, this is going to start to negatively affect people. And it didn't. I was shocked. So the Waiter prices at that time were 15% higher than the menu. So when they changed that last model, and it was a sliding scale, but it was putting me at 25%, I was like, for the love of God, that's a lot. I don't know if people are going to embrace this because that's really high.
This is July of last year, July
Correct.
of 19.
Right.
So let's just pause there for a second. It's because Waiter at this time is
Dominated this market.
but they're also bleeding cat. They're not making any money.
Right.
So they're growing their bandwidth, and I think they get to a point where they say, well, they had actually sold at that point.
I think public.
Right.
Yep.
And so now they're saying, okay, now we got to get to profitability.
Right.
And so that's when they move from the 15 to the 25% you were saying with that sliding scale.
Sliding scale. And as of now, they're full 30%.
Oh, my goodness.
Which is what all the other ones are doing as well.
Okay.
So everybody in that market is really doing it 30%.
And so, but I remember you being somewhat vocal about that when Waiter first came out with that 25%.
Right.
And maybe articles written, maybe it was on social media. I saw
Right.
it, and you're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right. Tell us about that.
Well, first off, what happened is it really should be studied in marketing because it was a horrible rollout. They sent out the legal notice to all of us, and the verbiage was not clear. And it made it sound like we could not raise our prices to cover this cost. That's what it first sounded like. And then they were saying stuff like you couldn't have, and really what they were trying to say is you couldn't have a different price strategy with different third parties because they didn't want to be the underdog. But it just wasn't clear. So that's where I got vocal, and I was like, okay, you might as well come get your tablet now because we're not gonna work with you on this. So they came back, and it was just a horrible marketing rollout. And then they had to, they sit everybody out, their people, and like, okay, that's not what we meant. And I said, well, that's not what this says. And I said, I need clarification. And I said, I'm not resigning until all of that's clear. And so they came back, and I think I stayed with them for a little bit longer. And then it just started everything was rocky. We were starting to see a lot of inconsistencies with the pickup. And then at that point, people are calling us, complaining about, I said, well, the food's still here. I mean, that's not on us, that's on them. So just start to see a lot of issues.
So when you go back to when you first got into the third party delivery and you saw that pick up immediately, was your sit-in business cannibalized at all with that?
No.
Did you see those numbers go down?
So realistically, I don't think the people who are willing to pay 30% are really paying for a convenience.
Right.
So they're in what I always think of them as my double working families. Mom's got the kids on this side picking up, and maybe dad's picking up this kid from this side, and they're trying to get them home and fed and get their homework all done at a reasonable time. And so I think that's where the third party really came in. I did not see a negative effect on my in-house numbers.
I see.
And what was funny, it didn't even affect my normal pickup. So I had my people.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I say that, I think one of the most important things that a restaurant needs to understand when they're picking a location is if your 5 mile radius is not going to sustain you, you're not going to survive this business. And your 2 mile radius needs to be so strong that those are the people who are going to do the pickup all the time. They'll be your most loyal customers. But if your 2 to 5 mile radius is not strong, you're not going to survive this business.
So at that point, you have your walk-in, sit-down business as healthy.
Right.
You've got your catering is very healthy.
Right.
You've got your normal to go as healthy. And now you have this fourth revenue stream, which is a third-party delivery, which was going well.
Right. And then the other thing, there's one other component that kind of came out of nowhere. As I was approaching my 50th milestone, I started kind of getting serious about, getting myself back into shape. And working out. And so I went to this little nutrition seminar, and the light bulb just went off in my head. That's also when the meal prep was starting to kick off, and I was seeing that going around Baton Rouge. So within I think 3 days, I rolled out a meal prep menu, but I did it in a different way. Most people, when you go to these meal prep companies, they're putting these different dishes for you, and I think they start to get repetitive, and I think the consumer gets bored because they feel like they're eating the same thing over and over again. So what I did is, most of us here in the South always have a protein of some sort, whether it's backstrap or brisket or chicken or something, because we're always grilling. It's the sides that people don't want to deal with. That's the work that they just don't want to deal with. So we came up and it was like 13 items, and they're all very reasonably priced, but it's just that item. So it might be my cauliflower mash, or it might be just brown rice, or it might be just this stir-fried vegetables. We have 3 different sauces you can mix and match. And the only protein we offer is 3 of our grilled chicken breasts. Because typically what the customer's going to do is just build and microwave it at work or do something else.
So that's on your menu as meal meals?
Meal prep. It's on my website, and I also offer it through all my third-party deliveries.
That's fascinating, Jim.
And what I found for that was most people utilize that on Sunday and Monday, because that's when they're thinking about meal prep. So usually on Sunday, right after brunch, after I've done that promo piece, I'm always like, do my meal prep picture on social media and say, don't forget to add this to your pickup or your third-party delivery. And it might be just $10, but that $10 extra add-on becomes something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. So they may be ordering a meal to go,
Right.
and then they're ordering. I see.
Yep.
That's brilliant, man. I love how you have just never stopped creating, right? New products, new dishes, new services, and that's got to be the key to your success.
I like to think so. You know, and on the bigger scale, what we're talking about is entrepreneurship. When, I'm not one of those people. Back when I was in college, to me, success was I wanted to be a guy that put on a suit every day and went to an office and made things happen. I didn't know what, but in my head, I thought that was success.
The picture. That was the image.
That was the image. I'm going to have a suit.
Yeah.
I might have a briefcase. I'm going to live in a bigger city, and that's going to be success for me. And, working in the hotel industry, wearing a suit every day. But I had 5 layers of bosses above me, and I was very creative, and I came up with these ideas. Well, I'd have to pitch them to 5 different levels, and I might even get up to level 5 before one says, no, I don't like that idea. And after the second year, I remember I had my first little midlife crisis at 25, and I remember thinking, what the hell am I doing with my life? And I started looking at the managers above me 10 years older, and they were miserable. And I said, I don't want to be that person. So at 25, I resigned my job, and I came back and I worked in the kitchen with my dad.
At his restaurant here,
restaurant.
Carlos's Mexican food.
And I said, Dad, I'm going to work strictly in the kitchen for 2 years. I want to see if this is really what I want to do in life, but I'm going to still apply for some other jobs. So I realized that I did have a passion for restaurants. That's what I've done my entire life. I've been in the kitchen. I've been in the front setting. I've done everything in a restaurant. There's nothing I have not done. Yeah. So I applied for some jobs, and I kept getting turned down, and I was about to even be flown out to Calabasas, California to interview with Cheesecake Factory, which I had done all my research, and that was my ideal restaurant job. And I get turned down, and I was like, what the hell is going on? Why am I getting rejected? Like, I said, I've got this experience. I've got a degree. I was like, I don't understand. And one day I'm chopping my onions, and I'm just kind of mad. I'm like, gosh, I don't understand what's going on. And being raised Catholic, I talk a lot. I have an adult relationship with God, and I talk. And one day, clear as a bell, God came in my head and says, you're going to open a restaurant, and I'm going to reveal to you later why. And I sat there and I paused and I went, oh my God, I'm about to open a restaurant. So about 15 minutes later, my dad comes in, bebopping, like, hey, what's up, son? I said, I'm opening a restaurant. And he goes, how'd you decide? I said, God just told me. And I was like, oh, okay. And that began the journey. And I opened Mestizo when I turned 29. So it took a little bit longer. And I don't know if you want me to tell you why, when God finally revealed to me why.
Why don't we pick that up right when we get back from a word from our sponsor?
Okay.
What a great story. Modus is a proud sponsor for the Next Entrepreneur podcast, and we welcome them to the show. Modus is a national facility services company performing work for Fortune 500 companies all over the United States. So who is Modus and what do they do? These guys do the non-mechanical installations inside big distribution and fulfillment centers. So the way they like to say it is they take it from the conveyor to the dock door. What does that mean? It means they're building the pick stations. They're doing all the cabling for all of the electronic equipment. They're putting in bollards and barricades and signage and tape on the floor. And these are in huge facilities. They work in really tight time frames. They've never missed a schedule. So if you need help with your facility services in your distribution facilities, reach out to Modus. Modus can be found at modusmoves.com. And we are back with Jim Urdiales with Mestizo Louisiana Mexican Cuisine. And Jim, you're just telling us how you started your business.
Yeah, so God revealed to me, I'm going to open this restaurant. And so I open up, and I was probably open 16 or 17 years. And there was the shooting in Baton Rouge, the cop shooting.
Right.
And I walk off my line, the restaurant's dead, and I'm looking at it on the TV, and I got filled with anger. Like, why is this happening in my town? Why am I like Baton Rouge? Like, this is not right. And so a few glasses of wine, and I do this little post on Facebook, and I said, I just was angry about this happening in the town. I said, I'm going to call my restaurant friends, and we're going to do something to raise money to benefit these families. So I go home to take a little nap, and Rob Krieger, who used to be with WBRZ here, he had moved to New Orleans. And I had a lot of relationships with different people in the media. So he calls me up and says, hey, Jim, can I come do an interview with you real quick at the restaurant? And I was like, for what? He goes, your post on Facebook. I said, what are you talking about? He says, are you taking a nap? I said, yeah. He goes, you might want to open up Facebook. This thing had just blown up. And at the same time, there was a gentleman running for mayor, and then he tapped in on it, and it became this week-long thing where we built this movement of 25% on the 25th. To give money, raise money to go to the families of the fallen officers. Right. And if I'm correct, it was 2 Baton Rouge City Police, and there was 1 state police, and there's different funds, and so I had to navigate through that. And I didn't want to touch any money. I was like, I don't want to be accused of anything, so we partnered with BRAF, and then they held the money and then dispersed it. But it became this movement, and I remember the day after, I mean, it was a Monday, and it was the busiest Monday I've ever had in my entire life. I literally worked 13 straight hours on my line.
It was the 25th, that Monday?
It was, 25th of July. It was July, and then right after that, the flood happened, like 2 weeks later. So it was a crazy year.
So how many restaurants got on board with that?
It was over 300 plus businesses. There was everybody. And I remember the guy from Counterculture. I had never met him before, and he called me, and he was having this story the next day talking about how this was important to him because of a family member, and he had such a busy day. And he said the interaction of people that day, and it was really one of the most beautiful days I've ever experienced in Baton Rouge. Wow. The generosity and the people out and everything else. So the very next day, after having conversations and realizing that we had just raised a lot of money, I said, that's amazing. And I'm sitting on my stoop outside the next day with my coffee, and I'm having my little reflective time with God. And he came in my head, and he revealed to me why. And the reason that happened is I had worked and built my career, and I had the relationships with people. I had volunteered so much with other people that shout out that I did, I had earned that spot, but you have to work hard and sacrifice to get to that spot. I always get a little teary because it's something that really meant something to me. I realized that it was also, to me, that baton that I've always told my dad when I did this. I said, I don't take it lightly that you and my mom worked so hard to have that career and that reputation. I have to also take that baton and make it my own, but also respect the fact that my parents have worked so hard, and my grandfather too. But my involvement in the community, my involvement in associations, that if I, kind of like what you're saying with Waiter, if you play social media correct, if you involve in the community and people see that you're engaged, you can do a call to action and it means something. So I don't take that lightly, but it's also the fact that it was a building up in my career and involvement in all these different associations, that something like that could happen in a week and changed, a lot of different things for us. So it was amazing.
Yeah. That was a cool thing to watch. It was a local viral movement for sure.
Yeah.
And, but hearing you tell that, I mean, you earned that platform, and therefore your voice was legitimate and was respected, like you said. But that other comment that you said, about your family and, that baton, I mean, I can't even imagine how proud your parents are of what you've done, not just because you've been in business for 21 years, but the way in which you've done it and all the things that we're talking about here, the creativity and the expanded options. And it's just, it's a cool thing to see. Knowing your parents, it's a cool thing to see. So social media, if you had to try to describe the impact that social media has had on your business and the impact that it's had on your the way in which you market your business, how would you describe that?
Well, take a step back. 21 years ago in 1999, there was no social media. And, at that time, advertising choices were yellow pages, white pages, which don't even exist anymore. You had billboards, you had print media, radio, TV, but all that was expensive. And when you're just starting out, a lot of people don't have a big budget for something like that. So when Facebook comes out, at first you think it's just a cool way to connect with people. And it took a few years for me to understand how I could maneuver this to promote my business. But then, at that point, we still weren't on the cell phone thing yet. But now that I can, perfect example is being raised in this industry. I am such a creature of habit. So I eat my lunch at 10:45 every day, and I eat my dinner at 4:30 every day. I always eat before my shifts. I don't eat after. But while I'm eating, I'm thinking about what I want to do to promote and what time do I want to promote this. Because if I'm promoting lunch, I want to promote it now because I want people to see it if they're scrolling at that time. If I want them to dinner, I'm going to do it then. If I'm doing brunch, I'm going to do it that day. Just like I was saying earlier, my meal prep, I know that Sunday, Monday are my biggest days for that. So I'm always going to push that at that time. Social media is huge, but also it's a platform that you have to give a lot of respect. And I say that in the sense that I don't post anything political. I don't post anything really too personal. Every now and then I'll post pictures of my plants, the stuff that's important to me. I look at it as I'm telling bits and pieces of my life. Yeah. And anybody that knows me knows I love my backyard. I love to garden. I love my dogs, my travels. And so the stuff that tells the story of who I am and also how it interconnects with Mestizo is what I do. I try not to do anything that would offend somebody. I try to make it fun, light. I have another Neil from Zippy's here in Baton Rouge. We've just connected recently on social media, and he has a very similar, very funny platform, which I like that as well. And it's a great way for, I think, all of us as business owners, especially restaurants, to follow each other, see what they're doing, and kind of learn from each other. But definitely social media is where it's at. I mean, you can't beat the bang for the buck if you use it correctly.
And similarly, you've created, a respect where you get a lot of following and a lot. You've got it seems to be something that would be really effective for you.
Yeah.
You do it well for sure. So I'd like to shift gears a little bit and just be a little reflective. I should be a little reflective on looking back, like how you would define your culture and your business philosophies.
Well, first off, it's easy to say that Jim is a successful restaurateur or this, but I'm in the business of relationships. And so the relationship I have with my customers is invaluable. I'm a restaurant owner that's in my restaurant every day. And so it's not like you're walking in and, somebody owns this restaurant or I'm an investor. I mean, I'm physically in this restaurant every day of my life. And the people who come in, they have a relationship with me. Right. And even if I'm busy and I have an exposed kitchen, so a wave can mean something. The fact that I've watched, when your daughters were born and you would bring them in the babysit to my parents' restaurant. Yeah. I now have customers where those kids are now in my restaurant with their kids. And I don't take that lightly. And I know their birthdays and I know their names. And I mean, it's just a bigger part of what this whole journey was for me. So in the 21 years, this is, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like it's a give and take. I mean, it's a lot of sacrifice to do what I do, but I love it. I love my customers. I love my staff, most of them. And, if you're going to work like this, and I think we talked about this earlier was, what I do is a lifestyle. It's not a job. A lot of people have a job and that's what they do, but I'm a restaurateur who loves what I do. And I put it in real quick when I was moving from one location to the other, and we were down for 8 days. And I'll never forget that first Friday night. I went to dinner, and I'm 36 years old at the time. And I go to dinner to Tsunami, and Leah sees me. She's like, "Oh my God, Jim, I'm gonna rush you over here." I said, "No." I said, "I want to wait." And I realized at that moment, at 36 years old, that was the very first Friday night in my entire life that I've been at another restaurant, period, in Baton Rouge. I've been on a vacation, but I've never dined at a restaurant on a Friday night in Baton Rouge at 36 years old. Yeah. And at 50, I can only tell you there's only been maybe 3 other Fridays that's happened in that time frame, because we work. You sacrifice a lot of personal time to do this, and so you have to be passionate about it. You have to pull joy from it. Even at a time like this, I mean, me and my managers were working nonstop, and we're exhausted. And we did it again yesterday, and we did 3 weeks. We pulled a bunch of hot dogs from Frank's, and I didn't realize everybody loved hot dogs so much. Well, we just ordered a plethora of hot dogs from Frankie's, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, this is the best thing ever!" And sometimes you just go bring donuts for Mary Lee, and it just gets everybody excited. And typically like on Cinco, we'll pull in Jimmy John's but it's something different. But it also shows that I know that we're all moving, we're nonstop. We work really hard, and I've got some great people, and I'm not sure if that's the point to say, but if you're going to do this business long term, you got to surround yourself with some people who are amazing. I've been very fortunate that I've surrounded myself with people who complement my negatives and vice versa. And I think that's important, kind of like a marriage. I mean, you have to learn the give and take of personalities, with what motivates them, and help motivate them to make the whole experience better.
Looking from the outside in, I would say what I sense is a very strong sense of quality, importance of quality in everything that you do, from ingredients to presentation to service, and in an air of professionalism, like you take your job very seriously. But the third thing I would say is fun. You do all that, but you have fun doing it, which I think is really a cool thing. Yeah. So look, let me wrap up, Jim, with any advice that you would give to an aspiring restaurateur. And let me first. I think a lot of times there are people that romanticize I want to open a restaurant, and it maybe looks fun, but it's a tremendous amount of work.
Yes.
Right. So, tell us what advice you may have for an aspiring restaurateur.
The first two things that are most important, if anybody ever really wants to open a restaurant, and this is any small business, you have to do a business plan. And doing a real business plan means you look at all the positives, all the negatives. You sit down pen to paper or on the computer, and you look at everything. You look at what it's going to cost to run this business. It's going to be way more expensive than you ever thought it was going to be. Business plan is the most important thing. I've done, I think, 5, and I've even tweaked them back a little bit just to look at. Second most important thing I've learned in 21 years is you better have a really good CPA and a really good lawyer. Most important. My relationship with my CPA is probably one of the most, I almost consider him an employee. That's how close we are. He helps guide me and helps me make really good decisions. And the advice that he's given me has been invaluable because I don't think like that. That's not my genre. Third thing I think I said before was surround yourself with people that you're going to enjoy being around. And that's sometimes tough because, I've had employees go, I've had several that worked with me over 5 years. And I mean, hell, we cried together when they left, because they were moving on to something else. And because they're your work family. I mean, the fact that I spend more time in my business than I do my own home.
Right.
And so that's really important to understand that you got to surround yourself with people that you really want to be around, and have respect. There's a lot of things out there, I even go back to the social media thing, but respecting other people's opinions, respecting other people's insight. I will say this, I'm very blessed that I'm a very creative person, but at the same time, I'd say my second thing is I listen. And so even when one of my employees has a different opinion, I said, just explain it to me slower so I can picture what you're trying to get to me. Mm-hmm. And when I feel it, then I'm like, okay, I got it. That makes sense to me. Because at first I wasn't taking it in.
Right.
But I really like, where are you coming from? And that way we can make this decision, together in a weird way.
Well, Jim, you've had a really interesting career. Mm-hmm. And as a restaurateur, I think it's safe to say that you are very well respected, that you have earned that respect by continually being creative and innovative and hardworking and personable. And, people see you in the kitchen there and running and managing your businesses. And so congratulations on that. I know it's a very challenging business. And best of luck working through these times as we work back to getting back to normal. And again, congratulations on all your success. And thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. So when I look at Jim, I think he has all the keys that it takes to succeed in restaurant to the degree that he has for the last 21 years. He's passionate about what he does. He works very hard. He's creative. He's a people person. And he has honed those skills over his career and really built a very impressive business. He's very well respected. He's poured his heart into the industry, and it shows. So we wish him the best of success moving forward, and we appreciate him sharing his stories. Thank you for listening to the Next Entrepreneur podcast. We'd like to thank our title sponsor, Mainspring Companies. It can be reached online at mainspringcompanies.com. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach us at ask@nxtentrepreneur.com. You can subscribe to the Next Entrepreneur podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, Stitcher, or iHeartRadio. You can help support our podcasts by leaving a review on Apple Music. You can follow us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please share this episode with your family and friends. The Next Entrepreneur is produced by Propel Productions. They can be reached at propelyourstory.com. Today's episode was produced by Daniel Sagona.